Call order of a regular meeting, Goodyear City Council, 13 September 2010. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation led by Councilmember Souza.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we pray that you guide this council in its deliberations this evening for the betterment of all who live in this community. We ask that you protect the men and women employees of our city and the functions they perform for this community on a daily basis. We ask that you take into your arms those of our military who have given their lives during the democracy to the countries of bringing democracies to the countries of Iraq and Afghanistan, and for those that remain, bring them home safely as soon as possible. We pray also for our nation and its citizens during this time of financial difficulty. Let the crisis end and stability spread across our country. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay.
Thank you. All members of council are in attendance this evening. We have no expenditures to approve or ratify. We do have 3 communications, and the first one was for recent military service overseas. I want to commend Chad Waltz for that, and he'll be here in a few minutes, and Mario will do that. I want to talk a little bit about military personnel serving on duty, and I'll express that in a minute. But let me go right to a proclamation acknowledging September 17th to 23rd, it's next week, right? As Constitution Week. And so I have a proclamation. I won't read the whole thing here, but it's Citizenship and Constitution Week 2010, just a summary. We, the people of Goodyear, do enjoy the blessings of liberty, the guarantees of the Bill of Rights, equal protection of the law under the Constitution, and the freedoms derived from it. Now, therefore, I, James Kavanaugh, do hereby proclaim September 17th as Citizenship Day and the week of September 17 to 23 as Constitution Week, and invite every citizen and institution to join in the national commemoration. So I'm all proud to be a part of that, I know. I'm going to be standing up here in the back doing this. This is a little unusual to do this, I know, but I just felt like it was such a worthwhile experience for everybody to hear about it. Where's the mic on this? Is this the one?
Yes.
Okay, I was honored, as have probably tens of thousands of people over the last quite a few years, to get a ride on a carrier. And what happened was I had never heard of this opportunity before, but a council member at Gilbert, John Sentz, is a previous Navy captain, and he told me about it and asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said yes, so I got picked up for it. And what we did, we went out to a carrier. I'm going to show you a picture of it in a minute, and I'll describe something about that carrier. But this is the airplane you go out on. It's called a C-2. Georgia Lord's daughter used to fly those.
On the same ship?
Yeah, on the same ship. And you load it as if you're familiar with a C-130, you load it from the back, and then you sit with your facing the back. It's a typical military thing to do in passenger aircraft. Next, please. Now, from that airplane, there's only 2 windows, and they're no bigger than this. But it so happens I was by one. So I got this picture. It's really a great shot. Really hard to take, just lucked out. And that's the carrier that we're going to be on. And it's hard to tell you, see it, I guess, but I wanted to show you the catapults, the jet blast arresting barriers, and the traps. And it's just too small to show you on that. But that platform is 4 acres. And I was going to brief this 2 weeks ago, remember?
Yeah.
And what was 4 acres? 4 acres was 13 houses in Pebble Creek. So the Navy put 73 airplanes on that 4 acres and 5,000 to 5,500 people. Can you imagine such a thing? And that's what they do. The carrier's about 20 stories, and I think sometimes we went up ladders on all 20 of those. I'll tell you, it's an arduous 24 hours on a carrier. It's really something else. But that's the carrier. Next, please. This was just when we land, and it was mostly private sector folks, so we're all civilians. And they put you right by the airplanes. You get off there, it's sort of like organized chaos, and I mean that literally when you get out of that airplane, because they're moving, they're landing, and they're taking off. This guy's coming in, that's a F-18, and I want to show you a couple things here. You see that right there at the bottom? That's called a trap. It's a chain link wire, and there's 4 of those, and I'll show you in a minute how they work, because it's sort of exciting. Go ahead. See, he's just about ready to catch that one there. And that's in the Air Force would call that an AWACS airplane. The Air Force would be a jet airplane. But that is a type of AWACS. Controls the battle area. There's a couple people in that airplane that are controlling the battle area for the pilots.
See the hook coming down?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to see an F-18 grabbing that hook. Go ahead. Here, there's the guy pulling the trap. Now when I landed, we went from 105 to 0 in 2 seconds. When you take off in that C-2, you go 0 to 130 in 2.5 seconds. The F-18 does it even faster. So they're moving real fast. That guy came in, he's probably going in about 140, I'd guess something like that, and he's stopping in 2 seconds. He grabbed the trap. Next, please. And there he is. What's going to happen now is 2 sailors are going to come out, and the trap is going to be disconnected from the airplane automatically, and they're going to get brooms, and they're going to push that trap back to where it belongs, because there's another airplane within a minute coming in. Okay? Next. They have so many people on a carrier, it's hard to imagine. The training is outstanding, that they can control this entire flow. You see, those people have different colored jackets. Each color means something, what their duty is. So that if you're out there at the aircraft and you don't know a fellow, you know what he's supposed to do by the color of his jacket. Makes a lot of sense. And I think the landings had just been accomplished, and now they're moving out off the deck and into the lower parts of the carrier. Next, that's looking out from the bay into the ocean. We were about 80 miles off the coast, we think, something like that. This particular carrier is called the Abraham Lincoln. There's 11 carriers in the Navy today. This one comes out of Washington. And get this, it was where we were because it was training. And it was going to train for about 3 weeks. So they're flying probably 50, 60 missions a day just to train. They're 80 miles off the coast, but where are they flying to? Nevada, California, and they're training. It's just remarkable what they do and the time constraints in their lives. These youngsters, the average age is about 19 or 20 on a carrier. The fellow who was steering this carrier was 19 years old. But so of these 5,500 kids, a couple 06s, that's a captain, they're gone for 8 months. They left Washington. Hey, Richard. They left Washington. They're going to be off the coast for about a month. They're heading either North Korea or Afghanistan. So they're going to war. And they'll be back in 7 or 8 months. And guess what? They're going out again, aren't they? Next one. The bay is where they do the maintenance on the airplanes. This is the greatest. I'm going to have this picture put in a frame. This tells me more about the Navy than anything I've ever heard of before. But you see those resting barriers? Everybody see what those are? The jet blast arresters. See if I can get this. right there, and right there. See that? That's exactly that. Jet blast deflector is what it is. 2 aircraft right there. They're getting ready to take off. 2 airplanes right behind them going to take their place. Those deflectors are going to go down into the base of the, what do you call it, the deck, flight deck. And those 2 airplanes will take their place. This guy here is getting ready to come in after this guy. And this guy here is going up to 2 others at the front of the airplane. It's just unbelievable how they control this. And generally how it worked was they would have the aircraft take off, and they'd come back about in an hour and a half. Just before they take off, another group is heading out. So you have 10 or 12 airplanes take off, go to training, and the training that preceded that by about an hour and a half is coming into land. But this just shows you what these people are trying to do. And these are youngsters. I'll show you a little more on that. Next. They're all out by the aircraft. That guy's getting ready to go. That's a 2-seater F-18. There's a name for it, but I can't remember it. But those are all people out there getting that aircraft ready. Got their hands in their pocket. You can see over there. Okay, next. This is cool. This here, see this fellow with the yellow, he's a pilot, by the way. This job is a pilot's job, and he's on like 3-year duty, not flying. But he's going to get down on his knee, and he goes like that. The pilot goes like that, and the guy on the side of the air, on the ship, goes like that, and that catapult releases. It's just arm, salute, punch it down, and he's off. Next. And here's, I don't know if it's the same one or not, but there's heading out. Look at all the people and all the airplanes sitting there. They all have a purpose. Next.
That looks like a UFO.
Next. And then I just have one more. One more, and this fellow taking off at night. They fly till about midnight. It's the loudest environment I've ever experienced in my life. The aircraft are noisy, the carrier's noisy, but you got 5,000 people sleeping there in that noise. It isn't just airplanes, it's the carrier itself. It's just a very noisy environment. But everybody that went on it felt great about it. It's a worthwhile experience. What you learn, and I was an Air Force guy, so I didn't appreciate this. I appreciate it now, I'll tell you that right now. These fellows in the Navy are outstanding. They are serving you to the utmost. And I cannot believe the age of these kids. And they're not kids. They're men and women. And what they do to control 73 airplanes in a wartime environment is just plain remarkable. So you can be very proud of them. Okay.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Well, I just have to say this, Mayor, thank you so much, because looking at that just made me so proud, because my husband had a Navy exchange tour during Vietnam. He flew F-8s off the Bonnie Dick, and Tiffany flew that on that carrier, and she was a pilot in the plane that took you over there. And unfortunately, she's out now, but that's what she would have done, and how fun that would have been if she'd stayed in and had you as a passenger.
I talked to Ron about it.
And I really appreciate you telling the public about it, because
thank
it's
you.
really neat, and we have an old Navy guy right here, you know.
Another one there.
And I can
Another one there.
appreciate it, too.
How about any other Navy folks out there?
Hey.
Very good. I can appreciate it, too, because 2-seater jet, with the second seat is where my grandson
Your grandson
flies.
flies
yeah.
that.
For the
Nice.
Marines.
Wow.
You know, when the pilot lands the airplane, he's supposed to land on the third of the fourth trap. Third of 4 traps. And he is evaluated by his fellow pilots in his squadron. They're out there on that deck evaluating him. They're going to go downstairs with him, and they're going to talk to him about what he did every landing. And then they mark him, and he's either embarrassed or he's very proud among his colleagues. But that's the way they live. And they're gone for 8 months. So. Looks
I don't
like
know if how
Chad
many-
here, is that right?
You know, Mayor, the The USS Midway it's now a museum, and it's in San Diego. And if anyone would like to have a similar experience, not active because it's a museum, but it's sitting there in the harbor. I spent the entire day on that thing, and it really is something. In fact, the same airplane that Senator McCain flew, there's one of them sitting on that. A4 is sitting on that deck. In fact, they have several other airplanes there too, but they'll take you through the entire ship from the top to the bottom, show you how the explosives are stored so that they don't get hit if a bomb or as much as possible. And we went clear up. In fact, I got to sit in the captain's seat up on that high deck thing, and it's quite an experience. It is. I can see why the mayor enjoyed that. And they showed us how the catapult worked and all this. They went through all that with us. So if you ever want that experience, it's worth the trip over.
I forgot one thing. You all know that a carrier is part of a flotilla of 8 or 9 aircraft, 8 or 9 ships. We never saw one of those other ships. They're all over the horizon, and they're all in defensive position to protect that carrier. It was remarkable that I knew they were there, but you never saw them. Okay, Mario.
You never saw a carrier.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much for your time tonight. I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize an employee who recently returned from military service overseas. I'd like to introduce Chad Waltz. He's an officer. He's been with the department for about 6 years. He is a staff sergeant. He was on orders for 9 months with a 6-month tour in Kazakhstan. He was assigned to security forces and was involved in criminal investigations and dignitary protection, including off-base excursions and commander protection. Officer Waltz is one of several employees that we have active in the military, and we'd just like to take the opportunity to recognize him for successfully completing his mission and thank him and all who serve for their service to our country. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much. You said you were in the Navy?
One of 3 services, yes, sir.
You were what?
One of 3.
You were in 3 services?
Yes, sir.
Never get comfortable, or what?
Like maybe the best stuff.
Variety is the spice of life, yes.
You know, what was neat about what you just did, though, and it goes back to all of us who served, you were very humble. And service men and women are humble. So I just enjoyed looking at you. As people stood up for you, you didn't want that. Would you like to say anything, or?
I just, do you want me to stand, or?
No, just begin to hear. So we got it on record.
I just want to really thank the council and the assembly here for the time and opportunity to really not recognize my service, but really for all the men and women who did not come back home. I served my country to the best of my ability, no more, no less, but I remain deeply humble and deeply moved by the sacrifices of the men and women that are over there right now, again, some of which who can't be with us today. So really on behalf of my police department, I'm just deeply, deeply honored to have such commitment from my command staff, to include Chief Brown. I've been in law enforcement for 14 years, but I've never had an organization or a city who's really rallied behind the cause to support the troops, to support me, and more importantly, really to support my family while I've been gone, because it was really hard for them. So I just really owe all of you a round of applause, so thank you on my behalf.
Welcome back.
Thank you very
Glad
much.
to have you back, and glad you're well and
Just
safe.
stay home. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Yes, and be safe, right?
Thank you.
Good job.
opportunity now for citizens to comment on any item that is not on this evening's agenda. Roger. Norman Phillips.
He did send this request electronically, received it today, so,
Can you put it in the minutes?
yes.
Okay.
Second speaker is Roger Matlin. He actually has two items on the consent agenda.
Okay, so we'll get to consent. Oh, do you still have a non-agenda item too? Only if you have a non-agenda item. If you're only speaking consent, we'll wait. Is that it, Lynn?
Yes.
Okay, give you an opportunity, anyone to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. Ask the clerk to read the items by title only, please.
Item A, approve draft minutes of a work session of a regular meeting held on August 23rd, 2010. Item B, appoint current alternate member Edward Wenchio as a voting member to serve on the Arts and Culture Commission. He will finish Brenda Bernardi's term, which expires on December 31st, 2010. Item C, approve the following 4 new members to the Goodyear Centennial Committee for a period of approximately 18 months through the state centennial celebration on February 14th, 2012. Norma Chastain, Amy Gilbert, Stan Jefferson, and Michelle Walters. These new members will replace the following 7 members that have resigned: Michelle Beverly, Judy Blakeman, Patricia Crow, Kara McLeod, Leslie Miller, Robert Ratliff, and Julie Schilling. Item D, 1, adopt Resolution 10-1397, authorizing the city manager and chief of police to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Goodyear and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to participate in the Maricopa County Neighborhood Narcotics Enforcement Team for salary reimbursement. Item D2, adopt Resolution 10-1398, authorizing the city manager and chief of police to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Goodyear and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to participate in the Maricopa County Neighborhood Narcotics Enforcement Team for overtime reimbursement. Item E, adopt Resolution 10-1396, authorizing the renewal of the intergovernmental agreement between the city of Goodyear and the Arizona Department of Public Safety to participate in the Arizona Vehicle Theft Task Force. Item F, approve the request for a comprehensive sign package for the Spring Hill Suites and Fairfield Inn and Suites development, a 14-acre commercial center zoned general commercial located at the southwest corner of McDowell Road and Bullard Avenue, subject to stipulations. Item G, accept the dedication by quitclaim deed for the 57.02-acre park site located in Palm Valley Phase 9. Item H, approve the request for a special use to allow a church for the Sword of the Spirit ministry within the general commercial zoning district in the Central Square Commercial Center at 13380 West Van Buren Street, subject to stipulations. Item I, adopt Resolution 10-1399, adopting the City of Goodyear investment policy.
Would anyone in the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Roger Matlin has 2 items that he wants to speak about, consent agenda item A and item G.
A and G. Would anyone on council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, we have A and G. Do you have questions on that, or do you want them removed and voted on separately? Pardon me? Okay, let's start with A.
A, this had to do with the Roger Matlin, Goodyear, Arizona. And just a comment on the approval of the minutes. In the minutes, it reflected some statements I made regarding a concern about the annexation of a strip of land. The comment just closed with stating that I was concerned people would make comments about it, and I actually stated that I was concerned about the city's legal liability with regard to the errors in the statements that were made. I just want to make that clear. Anyone can make a comment on it. That's why we have Officer Waltz defending our country. I just wanted to confirm that it was a legal liability issue that I was concerned with in the future for the city. So if we can correct that comment there.
Rourke, you,
I don't recall what he said, so if we can confirm that's what he said.
The only way we can check on that is to listen to the tape.
It's on the video, so.
So what do we do now?
We can change the language to reflect the legal
the
liability.
specific terminology. Okay, is that all right?
Do we have to bring it back, or is it?
No, you can approve it with the changes.
That change.
Approve it with that change.
Okay, in G,
Okay, my concern on item G, which is the quitclaim deed for the dedication of the 57-acre park. I had a couple of concerns. One is, why are we giving a tax credit for $931,000? I went back and reviewed the tape and the record for the city. There's no mention of that anywhere in the records that I could find. And just want to know, when was that agreed to? Because in a time when people are suffering financially, here in Goodyear, we're basically giving a developer $931,000 in tax credits for a parcel that is relatively worthless. And then secondly, it is noted throughout the record that the approval of the ordinance was on April 24th, 2006. And I went back through the city's public records, and I would have expected somebody in the city to have caught this, and this is kind of baffling to me, because you hear me get up and pick out some of these little comments and issues, but the city has this tendency to make mistakes in its documentation that, at a minimum, Councilor Rourke should have, or Councilor Massey, pardon me, should be catching in this documentation. The ordinance was actually approved on May 8th, 2006, council meeting. And I have a concern because, having seen an issue like this before, somebody can come back later on and say you've made consistent references to the April 24th, 2006 meeting, that you approved the ordinance then for this development, and that in fact you did not. You actually approved it. And Vice Mayor Lord was the one that made the motion for it. It was actually done on May 8th, 2006. So I would highly recommend that you fix the record, because there is case law in the United States showing lawsuits against cities and developers coming back when mistakes like this are made, and it is consistent throughout the city's records, these kind of mistakes, and I just have to say I'm disappointed that these items go through. So I would like to have that corrected, and again, would like to know where's the $931,000.
okay, we'll get to the 931, but tell me exactly what you want corrected, please. So
April 24th, I think.
The-
in there.
The reference, and this goes throughout years of records,
yeah,
in various reports, is that the adoption of the ordinance 2006-1002 was made on April 24th, 2006. And in fact, it was actually made at the council meeting of May 8th, 2006.
To fix that.
okay. Any comment on that, Lynn, or do you know? You may not have the necessary paperwork here?
On,
Or
well,
we can
he's
look
talking
into it.
about,
Just research that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll check that out for you, okay, find it for us, find out what we
Okay.
can do. Okay, John, who do you want to talk about the credit? 931.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, when the property was zoned for Phase 9 of Palm Valley, the council stipulated that there be a dedication of this 57 acres of property, which is essentially the Bullard Wash, an extension of the Bullard Wash north of Camelback Road. And that was carried through the platting of this property. And so this is a follow-through of that, where Suncor has dedicated that 57 acres in accordance with the zoning requirements. This Bullard Wash was also a part of our development fee study through the last several studies. So they are eligible for impact fee credits. So the roughly $931,000 represents the value of the property that we've agreed to with Suncor for development impact fee credits associated with parks and open space. Per our ordinance, we cannot, we must give credits where a developer provides for infrastructure, land that's in accordance with our impact fee study.
So this was all within the rights and the law of the city of Goodyear with their
Yes.
ordinance, that's what you're saying?
Yes. Questions?
Yes. How did they come up with the 931, Harv?
The property, there was a recent appraisal on the property adjacent to the Bullard Wash that Suncor had sold to a solar company for a solar project, which is no longer in the, in the works. And the property in question was evaluated, and about 2/3 of the property is in the floodplain. About 1/3 of it is developed. So we use the appraisal on the adjacent property to determine the value of the developable property versus the property that is in floodplain.
So I have a question. So this was a recent appraisal?
Yes.
Okay, so if it had been appraisal that was done at the time of this transaction, it would be much more than that. So actually, is that correct? I mean, the appraisal of property now is much lower than what?
It's a recent appraisal, so the property, the value of it, I think, represents what today's value is.
Which is lower.
Which is lower.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I need to point out also, Mr. Matlin referred to it as a tax credit. It is not. It's an impact fee credit.
Impact fee.
Yeah, that's right. The appraisal, however, was not on this 57 acres, right?
That's correct.
Is there any correlation between that and the Gilbert issue?
Well, this is 16,000 an acre, not 199,000 an acre, whatever Gilbert paid. So
This is, this is wash also too, floodplain.
But I think that's what the appraisal was floodplain, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, approximately, the 57 acres there, approximately 1/3 of it is developable. So 2/3 is floodplain. So we used, I think approximately, and Linda can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe 25-30% of the value of the appraised value for the developable property for floodplain, something like that.
Say that again.
Maybe Linda can clarify that for me, if she don't mind. She worked the numbers for me.
Mayor and council, the discounting was based off some appraisals that we had done to try to get a basis for what floodplain should be versus non-floodplain. We had purchased some properties back a year to 2 years ago along the Bullard Wash, and what I was able to do was go back and define the amount of discounting that was applied when we were purchasing those properties along Bullard Wash, and apply a similar discounting to that property that was within it was another segment of Bullard Wash further to the south. So what I did is made the leap of, on this, that the idea would be that that same discounting should be appropriate on this segment of Bullard Wash, and that those areas in the wash should be discounted at approximately 25 to 25% with a discount of approximately 75%. So that was how we derived that number. The sale of the property next door was actually at $1 a square foot. So what ends up happening is that property in the floodplain ends up being about 25 cents per square foot. The property outside of it, I also discounted because it's got a lot of. It would be challenged to develop it. You'd have to work with the floodplain and so forth. So even the property that wasn't in the floodplain, I discounted down to 75% of value. So none of it was similar to the property next door that had just sold about a year before, after the market had already gone down. So that's where those values were derived from.
Okay, thank you. Okay, could I have a motion then to approve consent items A through I, please?
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Lord,
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa,
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier,
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne,
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano,
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Aye.
passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll now move to business, and we will now authorize a council member to serve as acting mayor for the period of September 23 to September 26th during the absences of the mayor and vice mayor. Comments from the public? I have a motion.
I move we nominate Councilman Souza to take the place as acting mayor for our present mayor.
I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second.
A motion from Vice Mayor Lord and a second from Councilmember Loretano. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Dick, you got it.
Thank you for the confidence.
Okay. Information now, items for current events of council members.
I have a couple. Well, I didn't bring my list that I had the last time. I missed our final council meeting before we went on break because I had attended the governor's tourism conference. And I just wanted to let the public and the council know why I attended that conference. You know, the ballpark and tourism in general for the state has been a challenge, and I felt that this conference was something that our city needed to have representation, and actually Paula also accompanied me there. And to truly hear as a Southwest region and as a state what we can do to really come together and work on tourism for our state. You know, something that I would truly like to see our city and the Southwest region work on is collaborations together, because you know, where we have the ballpark and we have golf and we have the beautiful Stray Mountains, we don't have everything that tourists want to come see. Avondale doesn't. They have PIR. They have certain things. You know, Litchfield Park has a resort, but they don't have the other amenities we have. And I think that as we all work together with the events that we all put on, with the inventory of great things that we have, I think that we should collaborate and use our gifts and use our money together to really put the Southwest Valley region on the map for some tourist activities, whether it's biking, golf, hiking, bird watching, PIR, baseball. We have a lot of things. The other item that I wanted to mention was I've put out a hand to Westcor, and would like to sit down with them and do some brainstorming. We know that the mall is in our future, but it's still out there, and would like to see what they may have as an idea and what we may have as an idea to maybe bring some kind of either a weekend boutique bazaar that brings some of their retailers to Goodyear to just show some energy around that area. And there was a great deal of money that was put into that Bullard Park, and it's a beautiful park, and I think that we should maybe energize that area, and see what we can't do to have some shopping come occasionally to there. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
I attended the League of Cities, only a portion, unfortunately, because I was ill, and then the 9/11 breakfast this weekend, and it was very touching. I can't believe it's been 9 years.
Yeah, apparently they didn't
I
acknowledge
didn't know I
you.
was supposed. No, it's because I didn't check in. I didn't know I was supposed to check in. It wasn't anything.
You're acknowledged.
I was too busy chasing around the 7-year-old and the 5-year-old, so climbing on the fire trucks. But I want to thank them for that.
Vice Mayor Lord?
Well, I also attended the 9/11, and I just want to make a comment. I just thought that the chief's remarks were just so appropriate, talking about, of course, the tragedy of 9/11, but then he emphasized a coming together of our community because of we've had some disagreements between citizens and our public safety, and I thought his words were well chosen, and I'm hoping that all entities will look at this and that we start this new council year with all of us working together and not against each other. I also attended a GPEC and a Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and that's about my week.
I also attended the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and what was interesting, it was an economic outlook forum. And we had a variety of economists, and what they all agreed on was they couldn't agree on when all this was going to change. And again, what was the saying? They say with an economist, if they come back next year with their recommendations, and that means they were on. If not, they weren't. But it looks like next year they expect it to be a little better. But the thing that was kind of interesting is they didn't look for new construction to come to about 2015. So I'm hoping that they're not accurate on that because we rely very heavily on new construction and construction sales tax dollars. So I'm hoping the economists are wrong with some of those predictions. But, slow single growth is what they're kind of looking for the next several years. So, but that was kind of interesting.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the manager?
None this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, inquiries of staff by council?
I have one. I was approached today by an unhappy business owner that something I had noticed, but she really brought it to my attention that where we were able to get the signage for the road closures during this construction time, unfortunately, it has really gone against us because they left them on 24/7. And where the roads have been shut down 3 days of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they've left the signs on 7 days a week. And so it stops the traffic. It's still telling the people, do not come down these roads. And so some very upset business owners, and rightfully so. And I just really, we need to bring it to the attention of ADOT. Where they put them up, they left them. And that goes completely against what they were brought for in the first place.
Thank you. We'll sure talk to ADOT about that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, one more thing. You said signs that remind me, I went out to the Mary Kay model home this weekend because I had talked to Andy, and he asked me if I'd go look at the model home, which I did. And, we had that discussion about signs and direction. I have to tell you, I can understand why some of the businesses are complaining about their customer not being able to find them. And fortunately, Richmond American had their guy out there with a sign, and I knew Mary Kay Homes was somewhere around there. So Ron and I went in, and of course, without, which I call bandit signs, the little sign says going left, going right, they had had a bunch of tent signs up, and were told to take them down, per our signage. But it just brought to mind, when I went in there, these people are trying to sell their homes. And businesses are trying to make money, and we just need to help them out a little bit during these economic downturns. So it was just my personal observation, and I told the sales rep that if I hadn't seen this big funny sign, because you see some of those streets don't have street names up yet. The street name wasn't up. So anyway, just my personal comments.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Hang around for a minute if you would, because I have to start up another one, and then we'll vacate into executive session. Meeting's adjourned.